Pay attention if you have painful periods and heavy bleeding.
So this is the endometrium right here. And the endometrium has a cycle. It's supposed to get slightly larger in preparation for pregnancy. So when it's time for ovulation, this area, the endometrium, gets slightly larger. Key is slightly. And then when the body recognizes that the egg did not get fertilized, then it gets slightly smaller, right? So the reason why it gets larger is now because it's preparing to get pregnant, right? So you're gonna have more blood vessels here. You're gonna have more nutrient flow here. You're gonna have more importance in this endometrium area. But when the body recognizes that, okay, she did not get pregnant, then now all of this blood flow, all these resources is not really necessary. Now it's going to pass the egg. The egg is going to disintegrate, and this is going to become smaller, right? So what's the problem now with heavy bleeding? The problem is that this area right here, right, the endometrium, it gets too big. There's way too much blood flow there. There's way too much tissue production there. The endometrium becomes 2-3 times larger than what it needs to be. And remember, it still needs to shed. It still needs to become smaller. So if it becomes 3 times, 4 times bigger, then now when it begins to go into the phase when it sheds, it's going to become that much more painful now. It's become that much more of the process for it to get rid of all of that tissue and all of that mucus that has now been developed there because of the high amounts of aromatase and estradiol. So we're going to focus on aromatase and estradiol briefly. When you have too much aromatase, too much estradiol, then when it's time to get rid of the excess blood in the endometrium, now you're not gonna have any clotting factors. There's supposed to be factors in your body that stops you from bleeding excessively, but because of the aromatase, because of the estradiol, the clotting factors cease to exist, right? So now it's just excess blood, excess blood, excess blood. That's the first thing. 2, you're gonna have a lot of prostaglandins, and what prostaglandins are responsible for is for the cramping, right? Because remember, you have a whole lot of new tissue built up in the endometrium as well. And the cramps are to push that tissue out, right? So with increased prostaglandins, you're going to have an increased amount of effort for the uterus to push out the excess growth of the endometrium, right? And now you're going to have a lot more painful cramps, all because of the aromatase and the estradiol, right? This aromatase is converting all sorts of hormones into bad estrogens, right? This lining right here gets thick. Imagine it becoming, that width right here that you see on my fingers. It gets so thick, and it needs to come back to normal. It needs to come back to balance. And that's what the cramping is. That's what the excess bleeding is trying to come back to balance, but there's too much bad hormones in the blood. So we need to clean the blood. We need to fix up our hormones, right? We need to reinstate proper communication within the body, proper cell tissue generation within the uterus, and then now you'll stop getting those excessive bleeding. You'll stop getting the excessive cramps.